And you are listening to the Fatboy Show on your number one station, RX Radio. Happy Tuesday. It is the 6th of February, 2024. And I hope the second month of the year is treating you well. Of course, it being the 6th means it's 8 days to that day that everyone's kind of freaking out about, the Valentine's Day. Well, feel good. At least we're not harping on about Happy New Year. Now we're on to new things. Now we're on to Valentine's Day. Coming up in 8 days' time. I hope by then you would have found the love of your life if you haven't already. And if you haven't, well, then, and if you don't think you might find one before the 14th, I guess you're going to have to contemplate the meaning of your life. Perhaps you are worthless. I kid. And I mean that sincerely from the bottom of my heart. No, under no circumstances can you ever be deemed to be worthless, whether or not you have someone to love in your life. And the reason I feel like I need to emphasize this morning in particular is because I came across a very tragic story of a man who actually went ahead and took his own life because the love of his life passed away. There's a story of a 78-year-old man who hanged himself there in Tororo, where the people are in shock after this guy hanged himself under seemingly unclear circumstances. So it was on Sunday when Muse Alex Ogenere Ganda was found hanging lifeless from a mango tree just opposite his main house. Now, according to his close friends, it is alleged that prior to committing suicide, that Ogenere had been undergoing trauma ever since the loss of his second wife, who passed away in December of last year, just about less than 3 months ago. And people were saying that each time that they were with him, that they could tell, or that he could tell them that he feels like leaving the world because of the death of his wife. And friends would try to counsel him, but unfortunately things didn't work out. Of course, suicide is never an option. It doesn't solve any problems. In fact, it creates more. Think about the people he's left behind. Think about his loved ones who are going to feel traumatized for having not been able to intervene. I don't know if he still had any dependents, what's going to happen to them. Potentially, there could be family disputes regarding distribution of estate, assuming he was the head of the household. So there's all manner of ways in which things can go wrong with you taking your own life. So you should never consider it as an option. But just on the point about the trauma he was experiencing upon the death of his beloved wife, I do find it quite interesting. For those of us who are not married, they like to say, well, you better be married to someone or get married to someone or else you're going to die alone. As though if you don't tie the knot with someone and become legally wedded man and wife, that somehow your situation will be uniquely different from those that have done so. And yet here we have someone who was not just married, he was married twice. He had a second wife. And upon the passing of the second wife, he elected to hang himself because he just couldn't bear the thought of living without her. So who would be more miserable, do you think? The person who had never been married, who wouldn't have had to endure this kind of pain upon the loss of a loved one, versus someone who did get married, possibly spent many, many happy years together with someone, and then the person passes away. And now you start to feel like your life has no meaning. And I don't know where I saw this, but apparently it's a common trend for especially elderly widows to pass away not long after the passing of their wives. So you find that if there's an elderly couple that have been married many years, let's say the wife passes away at, say, age 60, 65 or thereabouts, within a year or two or three, the husband usually follows along in her footsteps and also departs from this world, usually through more natural causes. It seems to me that a lot of instances, men find themselves losing the will to live when their long-term partners depart from the world. The person with whom you spent many years just experiencing life, the joys and the pains of life, your partner, someone who knows you, someone who you know inside out, your soulmate. If they're not there anymore with you, life without them, I think, will come across as very daunting and very frightening and rather pointless to some people, which is why a lot of elderly men, upon the passing of their wives, it's usually not long before they too succumb to various forms of illness. And they say that health is also largely a psychological thing. In order to keep living, you kind of have to have the will to live, And if you've ever had someone in hospital for a long time, suffering from like a chronic illness or long-running illness, and they've been in hospital, usually after the doctors have given all the medication and performed surgeries, usually they say, hey, it's up to the patient. Encourage the patient, maybe pray for the patient, make them feel happy, because it is when you have the will to live that you kind of you make your body sort of function at its most optimal state, But if in your mind you've kind of given up on life, your body too shall give up and will happily carry you to the next world, to the next realm. So I think it's very interesting when we talk about the need for us to be married such that we don't die alone. I mean, ultimately, unless you're going to die at the same time, which is highly unlikely, one of you will be left by themselves upon the passing of the other. And those next couple of years or whatever years are remaining in your life are going to be quite lonely and quite miserable. So a guy or a lady who never ever got married, while they might be by themselves and occasionally lonely, the one thing they wouldn't have to deal with is the pain of losing someone so important and so dear with whom they had built a life. That's a pain they're never going to have to experience. And I would argue that pain is far greater than any pain that can be experienced by never having been married and sitting there, let's say, in your room just all by yourself. Sure, it will suck, but I think it'll suck a heck of a lot more if there had been someone in your life, a life partner, and then now you're walking the road of life by yourself. I think it can be mighty depressing, which is why I can sincerely sympathize with this old man, this 78-year-old man who decided to hang himself after his wife passed away. It's tragic while at the same time beautiful, wouldn't you agree? Tragic that, first of all, she passed and now he, but beautiful in the sense that he seemed to have so much love for her, right? Isn't that what people look for in this world? The kind of love where you just feel that, you know that there is someone out there who's for you, and they know that you are out for them, and just your partners in this world. It's a beautiful story, and to have felt such great love that contemplating life without them feels impossible. That to me is a beautiful testament to the human capacity for love that I think goes, is quite overlooked in a lot of instances, especially as it applies to men. We're often told that we are dogs, we're unromantic, and we're heartless. But look, it's men that mostly commit suicide when their wives either leave them, divorce them, or die, right? So I like to take this opportunity to submit to you, ladies, that men aren't as unromantic as you deem us to be all the time. We actually have a lot of love to give, and once we find that worthy woman, the world is hers, I tell you. Well, I don't know if you believe in an afterlife, but if you do, perhaps you could take consolation in the fact that now they are together. But of course, speaking of afterlife, the Christian version of it is that if you commit suicide, that's a sin, and so you go to hell. I don't know. Do you think that's what's going to happen? Should he face judgment for the sin of committing suicide? Will he be sent to spend eternity in hell, whereas his wife, who maybe lived a more righteous life and died from natural causes, might be in heaven, in which case it becomes triple tragic, this whole situation? I don't know. I'm not a religious person myself, and I haven't quite caught up on the scriptural interpretations of suicide and all those things. But I don't know. Do you think God or Jesus can cut this guy some slack on Judgment Day and just say, hey, dude, look, you were feeling bad, and so, yeah, ordinarily we'd send you to hell for, ending your own life. But in this instance, we shall forgive you so you can go over there to heaven and spend eternity with your wife. If only, right? I'm not a believer. I don't believe in an afterlife, so it might be of no concern to me. But at least with respect to matters of mental health, trauma, and suicide, I think that's a conversation well worth having. And if this guy had some support, perhaps he would not have opted to take this route. Although from what we're hearing from the friends, they were there and they were trying to talk to him, but perhaps the pain was too much. Now, here we are talking about the second wife, who it was, the one that passed. How come no one's talking about the first wife? Where is she? Was she nowhere to be seen in this whole situation? But anyway, we'll leave that for later. Thank you for tuning in to the Fatboy Show. This is your number one station, RX Radio. Sarah joins us in a moment to tell us what's poppin'.